could do the roll call. Russell Cox.
Here.
Keith Hamilton, here. Chris Girdler. Josh Givens. No Josh Givens. Barry Martin. Candace McGraw.
Here.
Renee Powers.
Rayanne.
Sorry, Rayanne Powers. I apologize. James Lee Stevens.
Here.
Marty Sutherland.
Here.
Okay. So we're all good to go with a quorum and ready to go. Is that correct? Chelsea?
Yes, we do have a quorum, and Dr. Quarles and Jessica are trying to get connected upstairs, so they will be joining us shortly, but we do have a quorum and can proceed if you would like to.
Outstanding. We'll talk about them or make them think we are. How about that? So we do need to approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was May 8th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second. A second.
And a second, McGraw.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Candace. So Chelsea, in the absence, we're going to let you say that we did approve those.
Yes.
And we need to
take
the vote.
Any objections? Okay, the motion passes by consensus.
Perfect. So Todd, I hope you're online with us.
I think he may be upstairs as well, but I can share my screen. I don't want to give his presentation without him, but I can share my screen so you all can see.
We'll definitely need Todd for the next few sections, trust me. While we're doing that, if I could just very quickly kind of bring you guys up to date. I did have a conversation with the auditors yesterday, and it was the first part of the process of, what are the things you'd like to see us look at? What are the things that anything that you need to? Of course, I always ask the first question, are you aware of any fraud, anything that we need to look at? Obviously, the answer was no. But as far as if you all have thoughts about that, any particular thing that you would like the auditors to look at or take a deeper dive in anytime in any of these meetings, it's the appropriate time to surface those at any given time during audit committee meetings or any time, really. The auditors work for us as a board of regents, and we have access to them and can request anything. So just kind of a public service announcement.
Thank you. Let's make sure things are working right. Just get that modifier.
We are here. We had IT issues. Our apologies.
Oh, we were talking about you though.
I'm sure it was great. Again, apologies for being a little late.
It's good to see you, Mr. President. It's even better to see Todd in the room because he's the heart and soul of what we're going to talk about today.
That's right. That's right.
So Todd,
okay.
You're going to walk us through progress on the forensic audit, I believe.
Yes. Did we get through the approval of minutes and everything without us at this point?
Did. We're pretty capable on our own.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Chelsea.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I was going to take that moment to breathe, but we'll go right into this. Status update on the forensic audit and the corrective action plan. Account 10,001. We have the committee had a June 30th deliverable date. They have put a recommendation forward to me. I'm taking that through our leadership here, and those recommendations are under review. I expect that we will have some recommendations for you at the next audit committee meeting. The quarterly review of account 10,001, that work has been implemented. There is a committee that's balancing it on a regular basis, and they are working through that, and that committee is established. And then a quarterly report to me will come at the end of the first quarter this year. which will be after September 30th of 2025. So recommendations around the first thing have been made. The other two pieces were implementation pieces, and those have both been completed at this point. So if anyone has any questions, not, I can move on. Under affiliated foundations, Megan reports that they've created this annual calendar for documentation that's needed and shared it with the peer team, created a spreadsheet documenting the status of each foundation's submissions, which you'll see in a moment on the next slide. And they're providing reminders until all the documentation is gathered. Foundation spending policies have been requested, which were gathered through the forensic audit, and they will keep that documentation. They shared examples to assist college foundations in helping to understand what the policies and procedures are, and they've already conducted training and stewardship plans. And if we could go to the next slide, the chart here will demonstrate last time we had some areas that were in red. Most of these you'll see now are in green on file. There's a few things that are still in progress and they're still working with our colleges. But these are, the deadlines are set by advancement and they continue to make progress on this. We again hope that that will be completed soon. So any questions on affiliated foundations? Right, on executive compensation, our General Counsel and VP of Human Resources have indicated that new contract templates will be implemented by the beginning of the next fiscal year, July 1st of 2026. That executive compensation market salary is going to be reviewed. That will begin this fall with recommendations to be provided at the March 2026 Board of Regents meeting. That was on the schedule for a review of all compensation, and so that will be provided to you in March. And then there are proposed policy and procedure updates that are planned to be presented to you at the December 2025 Board of Regents meeting.
So Todd, just quickly on this, doesn't need to be in here, but just so that we all know that the information that you all are using as a benchmark for executive compensation is what?
In working with compensation across our system, we primarily use what's called Coupa HR data, which is College and University Professional Association. I think that's what it stands for. And so that criteria, that benchmarking was established when the playbook and other pieces of the HR strategy were implemented a couple of years ago, with the idea that every 2 years we would review and take a look at where things are.
Great, thank you.
Okay, on FERPA compliance, just a couple of updates. May through August, it was the update was to develop and revise policy updates per recommendations. That policy template has been revised, and a draft is anticipated by the end of August, which is actually tomorrow. They are working on revisions to the policy, and that's being circulated among the colleges and with the folks in the registrar's office. And then communicating updates. As soon as that template is completed, then system office and the colleges will all receive an update as to what the new policies might be regarding FERPA compliance and how we move forward with those. So that work continues to be done and is on track for communication to our colleges next month. On the financial piece, we are still in a strategy of looking at policies around areas that were unaddressed currently. We have a meeting scheduled for next Wednesday. Our staff's taking a retreat day, and we're going to spend a significant amount of time looking at those policies collectively, seeing if there's a way that we can combine or condense them or simplify them. That will be the next strategy. Those policies my goal for them was to have them done by the end of this week, and then next week we will start taking a look at what things we need to do and what controls we need to implement as we move forward. So the policy piece is continuing. On the higher ed innovation and superlative group forensic audit item, this had to do with, it was really a procurement question. It was around a specific item, but the recommendations from KPMG were all around procurement. And so they have completed the steps around recommendation number 1, which was to create a guide for procurement requirements and set processes. There may be some different processes depending on the level or the cost of the contract. Guidelines for procurement and contract value are already established, but a procurement guide will now be developed and is anticipated to be available in spring 2026. This will be published for our self-help site. Informational training with contact requirements is now being developed and has been implemented. And then procurement guide, analyst guides for conducting RFPs and drafting contracts have been developed. So the internal work has been done. We're now in the process of communicating that out and providing we haven't done all of the training, but the training plan, the training's been completed and is in the process of now being implemented across the system.
You know, Todd, that if you go back to that one, that's an important aspect of this whole. This is the place where, as an audit committee and where, as an organization, you can find yourself in trouble if the specifics aren't spelled out and communicated in appropriate education hasn't happened. It's a very highly visible and the place where a lot of people go when they're not necessarily the one chosen on a contract.
Right.
But from a process perspective. So are you all, and I notice it says informational training with contract requirements will be developed and published in our video library, but are we proactively training the appropriate people around this beyond just it being available?
Yes. Yes. So we are working at trying in particular to begin with new employees as they come in to start them out in the right process, and then work with our current employees to try to do that. In the meantime, if schools would like to get a little bit ahead of our schedule and try and implement all of that training, or if someone isn't available for the training, we've now made that available so people can do it asynchronously, though we would prefer to have people present to be able to answer questions and talk through things in the process.
Good. Thank you.
So, the second recommendation on the Higher Ed Innovation and Superlative Group was the procurement process training. Otherwise, this part is what's not completed yet, mandatory training for all college business officers and business office staff. That will be mandatory, and that has yet to occur, though we're in the process of starting to roll that out. Procure to Pay is in the process of working with technology to create short videos, to create a video library. So once people are through the training, they would be able to go, if they have a particular question about something, they don't have to search through the hour-long training. They could find something brief and quick to a particular point. And it will be focused on our pro cards and basic procurement principles. Procure to Pay is also going to conduct live annual training for travel expenses and pro cards. That seems to be an area where sometimes there's confusion on how to do it. And so we're going to provide that live annual training. And then quarterly procurement meetings continue to be conducted to look at different kinds of topics as things change, as statute changes, as processes change. Our procurement team does quarterly reporting and has conversations with the colleges to explain what changes are happening and what they may need to know in the process. Recommendation number 3, it talked about a rigorous documentation process. And we do have, currently we do use Adobe Sign that not only authenticates our signatures, but shows printed time, date, and time of signature on executed contracts. So we keep those in a repository, but the documentation process that includes all of those dates, that has already been established, and we continue to use Adobe DocuSign for those kinds of documents.
Todd, I think Regent Powers had a question.
Oh, sure.
My only question was in regards to like the procurement training, that the annual trainings that you offer, are you sending that out to like a specific group of people to disseminate that to the colleges?
We have been sending that through the college business officers primarily, but That's a good point. Maybe we should make that a broader scope of people that we send it out to make sure that everyone gets it. For example, we could send it out to HR staff so that you would be aware of who's coming on and what trainings might be available for them. But we've done it that way. We can certainly expand that piece.
Another idea for consideration would just to be able to put that in the scoop. I know I've seen some technology trainings available there, as well as in the training and development portal.
Okay.
But that just try to expand that information out there.
Okay. Thank you. That's actually a really helpful suggestion for us.
Hey, Ty, could you go back one just real quick? I'm sorry.
Sure.
So this is more curiosity on my part. When you talk about signature approvals, is there a approval matrix that you all use as to what the limits are for certain people, certain levels, that's communicated, widely known what my maximum is, or how do you all handle that?
So when we bring on an employee, there are forms that are filled out that an employee sees, and it indicates what they're able to approve. And so, and a chain is established all the way through the system till final approval, so that an initial person may approve something, but then it moves on to the next person. It all works in our PeopleSoft system. If that person doesn't have the final authorization, then it continues to move up the ladder. So those are established when an employee comes on board or when their position changes. So we build those controls in so nobody sees anything they don't need to see, and it moves forward to the next person in an automated way once an approval is completed.
Great, sounds good.
Marketing, we discussed last time, that work had already been completed as of our last meeting. On the personnel and unit investigation, there were updates to policies. Our compliance officer has implemented Compliance Bridge, a web platform allowing the system to review policies regularly. We're now in the process of starting to move policies through that process. But that would be policies that and what the review schedule is, all of that will move through that Compliance Bridge process. There was a recommendation of a detailed analysis of health insurance providers. Particularly, this had to do with the OPEB trust, and that RFP process has been concluded. We have a new contract that will provide reduction in expenses, about $850,000 per year. And so we're looking forward to rolling that out very shortly. I don't want to get too far into the details of this till we have a chance to let people know what the process looks like. But that portion has been completed. We were talking about the formal review of pay, which we mentioned earlier. HR has implemented Salary.com's online compensation platform, and HR leadership from across the system have been trained on it. We're utilizing that to try to determine and get more information and be more detailed around the nature of our employees, some of the positions, trying to determine, are there particular pay bands where we're seeing some anomalies, just to be able to say, are there retention issues in any particular position, et cetera. So that analysis, that will be part of the analysis that's conducted this year. And then credential verification, HR is taking a look at this around onboarding. We'll be talking with Dean Dorton a little later, but Dean Dorton is going to work with us to help establish onboarding processes and give us best practices for recommendation on how to do that. Questions? All right, on the Pro Cards, one of their recommendations was consider adding a flag into the PeopleSoft system that would require budgetary supervisor approval prior to the purchase of large Pro Card transactions. That was investigated. PeopleSoft didn't have the capacity to do that. However, Procure to Pay, that's what P2P stands for, met with Pro Card coordinators a couple of weeks ago to discuss proposed changes. There'll be sign-in, sign-out sheets for Pro Card administrators to verify supervisor approval. There will be a video library training with a quiz to show mastery of the information, new ProCard agreements for both ProCard holder and ProCard user authorization, so people will understand what their responsibilities are. There will be a repository created that is accessible in audits for all future references, so we will make sure that we're meeting those qualifications, and if audited, we have documentation that we've completed this. We are updating our business procedures to include revised process information. And then we will be having quarterly meetings on ProCard with ProCard site coordinators, again, just to give them updates on what's happening with ProCards and how we manage those processes.
That's a dicey area, the ProCards. From my
It
perspective.
is. It is. And depending on where you sit, some people wish that there were more of them, and some others, one of whom might be talking to you at this moment, wish there were fewer of them, but we understand they're necessary for the conducting of business. They're just, it's a little harder to control, but we're trying to build in the right controls so that we manage them well and we're responsible with them.
Yeah, Todd, do you have any idea, maybe it was in there and I just didn't pay attention to seeing it. Do you have any idea how many ProCards are out there?
I will have to get back to you on that. That would be a guess on my part.
No hurry. I mean, one of the things I'm always surprised at here is how many there are.
Yes, yes. And then across the system, when we look at even like including the fire commission and all of those numbers, we try to minimize that as much as possible. But I couldn't give you a number, but I will look into that and get back to you on it.
And Chair, I don't have a pro card, so
Neither do I.
that's right.
I will say, when I arrived here, I looked at Becca Korosak in procurement and said, so do I get a pro card? And she looked at me with a little bit of a deer in the headlights, like, how do I tell the CFO, no, he can't have a pro card? And she did it in a very gracious way, and I don't have a pro card either. So
I used to have one. It's a lot.
yeah, it is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot. Yeah. And then voluntary separation agreements. Our VP of Human Resources and General Counsel are exploring the development of either a policy or procedure or general guidelines to set some standards around voluntary separation agreements. And then the last one is around carry forward and fund balance. We had a working group that was working on this. They have provided me with some preliminary recommendations, which are currently under review by the KCTCS administration. We went back and forth. I wanted to make sure we had all the right information and the right data, and that is currently under review. We just want to make sure we all understand where we are before we come forward with any comments or thoughts around this. But the working group has in essence completed its work. It's now, where do we go with that and what are our next recommendations? So again, we should bring that to you at the next quarterly meeting.
Very
I have
good.
a question, please.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir. I have a question. That
Yes,
for
sir.
Todd. Todd, can you give us by the December meeting in reference to the carryover and the fund balances, that what they are by colleges? And yeah, so what, and you know, I'm just concerned. I'm not concerned. I just want to know, that's a good way to look at colleges, basically, if they're, I don't want to use the term using their money wisely, but basically their financial responsibility. So if we took last year's budget and then not only the carryover balance, but if they were over in several categories, so that we can be aware of that. Is that possible to have that maybe by the December meeting?
I believe we can have that to you by the December meeting. That's part of our internal leadership review that we're going through right now, is to take a look at that. It's also part of what you'll hear about at the September meeting around the geographic footprint. We're actually trying to take a good look at our institution's financial health and understand where all of our colleges are related to that. And so trying to establish some benchmarks around what we do where colleges should be and where they are in relationship to that. So we will make every effort to get that to you for the December board meeting.
And I'm just concerned we'll never have, or the board will never be informed we've got $70 million and it with nobody is found out about it. What I'm saying is, so I just don't want that to ever happen again as long as I'm on the board to go through for us. Russell remembers that for all of us to go through that.
Yep.
What I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah.
And we're working to be we want to be very transparent. I've been pushing back on making sure we understand every dollar and where it is and what it's used for. And so we're now bringing that up through Dr. Quarles, the cabinet, and trying to make sure that we will be absolutely transparent with what we're doing around that.
Good.
Are there any other questions on the forensic audit items?
Todd, thank you, and thanks President Quarles for the seriousness that you've given to this forensic audit. I've said many times in audit committee meetings, I think this is the one that clearly, not that they all don't need a lot of attention, but this one clearly needed a lot of focus, a lot of change, and needed to feel completely different as we move forward. And I really do believe that that's being accomplished, but I think it's been intentional on y'all's part. So I do appreciate the seriousness that you've taken it, and I think we're better because of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a lot of good folks who've been working very hard. Thank you for that.
So we'll keep you right on task here, Todd, and the update on the Fire Commission audit.
So the Fire Commission has been in the process of 2 audits at the state level. The first audit is by the Auditor of Public Accounts. It's still in process. And as soon as we have their report, we will report to you. We had actually anticipated it by now, and we haven't received it yet. We really don't know what that will show, but we will get that back to you.
And I've been making some strategic calls to try to urge the audit to be concluded as soon as possible.
The second of the 2 audits at the Fire Commission was with the Legislative Review Committee. And so they have auditors on staff who came in, did a thorough audit with the Fire Commission, and they had two recommendations came out of that. The first was based on Fire Commission standards, there were some adjustments to training. They recommended that there were regulations promulgated to establish the training hour requirements based on the certifications. There were some changes made to that. It just hadn't caught up yet in regulations. And so they made recommendation to that. We agreed with that recommendation. The recommendation was approved by the Fire Commission, and the submission to the LRC around creating that regulation has been filed, and so we're anticipating a change in that regard. The second recommendation is, I will try to make this as simple as possible, but it involved 2 statutes which involve the amount of administrative costs are allowed by statute. So the Fire Commission, as part of KCTCS, pays us some administrative costs. There is one statute that indicates that they are not to provide us with more than 5% of their appropriation, and there's another statute that says on certain very specific things it cannot exceed 5%. The question is it the same 5%, or according to the way the auditors read it, it's 5% of the 5%. And so in conversation with General Counsel's office, with the Fire Commission has legal counsel that works with that, we all determined that we just needed some clarification around that, because we couldn't verify we were meeting the statute because we were each reading the statute differently. And so we went before the Legislative Research Committee. They made a recommendation for clarification and alignment. And so it now rests with them for resolution. There was no indication of any concern or problem here. It was just there wasn't clear understanding on everybody's part as to how the statute should be interpreted, and we requested clarification so we can confirm that we are aligned with Kentucky statute. And so that process is something that the LRC will move forward. We've had no update as to what that timeline would be or what that will look like at this point.
And just a friendly reminder, going into session, we do expect there to be KCTCS reform legislation, but there'll also be legislation concerning Kentucky Fire Commission as well. And that's one reason why we want the audit completed. So if we have to make a legislative change, we need to know that prior to January. Okay.
So we basically have done everything we can do to this point.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep.
Correct.
Any other questions on that? Okay, obviously, an important aspect of what we do is the internal audit. Todd's going to walk us through some aspects of that. So we'll come back with the action after we go through this, but Todd, let's talk about the internal audit.
Good. So we've had a good working relationship with Dean Dorton. They've done a review in a number of different areas. This is the fourth quarter report for the 24-25 academic/fiscal year. We have, I believe, Jody Wren is on the line, and we'll be speaking to this and can talk to you about the various components of this. But I would share with you, I think we've had a good working relationship in this quarter, and continue to monitor and keep on track with the items in front of us. So, Jody, if you're there, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, I'm here. Pleasure to be with you all today. And as we present our fourth quarter report, flip the slide, and we have several reports to share with you, or the results to share with you today, as well as just kind of the summary of the whole year, which has been really good. And we're happy to report that we completed all of the audits that were on our audit plan. This last quarter, we finished up our work in the student financial aid area. We looked at return of Title IV funds, eligibility, and cohort default rate, as well as IT finished up a few reviews in their area. And we've received management comments, and those are reported and included in this document, and we'll move on to the next and kind of go over each one. Whenever we perform our reviews and we identify areas for improvement, we rank those into either high risk, moderate risk, or low risk. And then in some cases, if we come across something that really doesn't raise to the level of necessarily a finding, we'll share it just to be, transparent and wanting to get that out as an other observation. For this review, we had no high risk issues that came to our attention. We did have a few moderate risk, no low risk, and then one other observation that we wanted to share and include. And the summary of all of the reports are in the next few pages. With regards to the Title IV, or the return of Title IV funds, this has been a review that we've looked at every year and are really not finding substantial issues. It looks like the control environment is doing pretty well, but we interview the staff and perform walkthroughs and then select transactions. For the most part, we found staff to be very knowledgeable, understanding their process, and they're very experienced in what they do. We did find one, what we considered moderate observation related to just one transaction that we tested was not notified within the 30 days, and management looked into that to determine why, because it's a fairly automated process, but it was one that had not been notified within that 30 days, and they have evaluated their process and tried to tighten it up to ensure that that didn't happen anymore. We also noted that there were some variances in, I guess, in the evidence of the withdrawals for NSLDS. And that is sometimes kind of challenging because the school notifies, and then you kind of have to rely on NSLDS to do their reporting. But we identified a couple variances of when items needed to be reported up to NSLDS. So we wanted to bring that to your attention. For the eligibility audit, we didn't find any exceptions in that review, which, you know, goes to the diligence of the student financial aid staff. And then cohort default rate was the last review. And the reason we chose this is, as you know, since the pandemic, a lot of the student loan payments had been deferred by the federal government. They weren't really requiring payments to be made by students as everybody was dealing with the challenges that occurred during the pandemic, and have just recently begun, you know, kind of requiring those payments and interest to be accrued, et cetera. And we thought it was important to look at those procedures in advance. So the cohort default rate for the last few years has obviously been very low because there have been no requirements. So there's really not anybody not, you know, missing their payments because they really weren't required. But the schools do have a dog in that fight as far as there are things that they need to be doing. While they may not be ultimately responsible for the debt, because that is the student loan servicers, they do have a role by, you know, keeping contact with the student and making sure that they reach out to the students as well to encourage them to, you know, either make the payments or obtain deferments or forbearances, and kind of letting them know all of the options out there. And what we found is KCTCS has a really good, robust system that we're even continuing to do what they needed to do within that area. We found one place where the policies may not be, may not be fully documented. And so we were suggesting that, you know, they really look at that monitoring and ensure they're beefing those up so that going forward, there's clear communication to what the expectations are. The next area is in the IT world. They looked at 3 areas: campus IT operations, change management, retesting, as well as operating system hardening. And I believe they found one moderate observation related to the hardening and how it's delegated to the individual in the IT department, but worked with the IT team to, you know, come up with a corrective action plan to address that they'll have addressed by the end of the calendar year. So overall, one of the other things that we do is we monitor, and I apologize, you're going to see a couple math errors in here because we added the IT results really late in the process, but we follow through any corrective action plans that have been established by management to ensure that they're meeting the deadlines that they've established or revising them when possible. So there are about 25 issues that we've been tracking. For this quarter, there were 2 that needed to be completed, and they were completed as management had estimated. And so the following few pages are just a list of those corrective action plans, when the report was completed, and when the due date is. So we try to keep that running list so that we don't let anything fall through the cracks. And then the last few pages are just an update of giving you an update of here was the audit plan and when we plan to complete things and the status. And as you'll see, we've completed all the areas that we expected in both the IT and the traditional audit list. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
This looks really good from my
Mhm.
perspective. I mean, a lot of things completed, a lot of things that we set out to make sure we're in line. And I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. If you were to look at all of this so far, what are the areas that as a committee that we should be focused on as far as remediation? And it's not a baited question. I'm just, if you were sitting in our seats, where would you be focusing?
The biggest project that KCTCS is working on, and we've seen in other organizations, is with regards to the documenting their policies and procedures, which they're moving forward with. And it's not an easy process, but I do think, if I was in, Dr. Coral's seat and your seat, making sure that the organization has really robust not only policies, but those procedures so that there's a roadmap as you have people retire and move on so that things can continue to move forward. I think things move really well at KCTCS. They have a lot of great people in place, a lot of people that know what their jobs are. And a lot of it's probably in their head. So getting those things documented, and we know they're working on them. So I would say that's the biggest thing I would be working at, and also getting to a point of working on their enterprise risk management program, which again is in their to-do list. They want to get to that, and they're trying to get through this, policy and procedure project so they can begin doing some more robust work in that ERM, which those of us that have ever been associated with those knows how important that work is as well.
Great. Appreciate that. That's right.
And I would just add that, again, just a friendly reminder, we have a full-time person that is doing nothing but policy work, and she's done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And with plenty of work ahead of her.
Yes. Yes.
God bless her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not an easy task.
No.
Any other questions on the internal audit?
And Chair Cox, I might just add that I completely agree with Jody's comments. And as we're working through this and we're trying to adopt it, I don't want to say it's the easy part, but the easier part is to say, okay, here's how we're going to change what we do. The harder and more time-consuming part is how do we build the policies and procedures so that we establish it and keep it going. And so that's something that isn't necessarily in everybody's job description when they come in and manage an area. So we are working on that. But I will echo with Jody, we appreciate the accountability around that because it forces us to get outside of the day-by-day things and focus on what's really important. So we acknowledge.
We've come a long way. If that's the main thing we should be focused and worried about. So
yes,
we will remain that way, but it's pretty good to think that we're at that place. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move right along. We do have to now look forward, as we always do, to an audit plan for 25-26. And we'll need to feel comfortable about this in order to make a recommendation to the board coming up. So Todd's going to walk us through the proposed audit plan for 25-26.
And I'll let Jody primarily speak to this. We've had some conversations about how we work together with internal audit. We have a lot of things that we're trying to make sure we finish up on. And so we're trying to work with Dean Dorton, not just to identify our concerns, though those are absolutely important, but we've been talking to them about finding ways that we could actually utilize their resources to help us and give us some guidance around best practices as we look at some of these things. And so I think some of what you will see is their concept for what that might look like and how we might work together more efficiently in the next year. So Jody, I'll turn it over to you from there.
Wonderful. Just to kind of do a high level explanation of the importance of internal audit. We bring having an internal audit function brings to an organization that independent and objective assurance capabilities, but it also brings by having utilizing us in the outsourced mentality, it also brings a robust consulting services where we can help the organization add value and improve the operations through deep dives, things that maybe staff really want to do, but it's hard for them to do, but utilize the expertise that we bring with our backgrounds and commitments to the higher ed space and throughout our organization. So I think that's one thing that Todd and I talked about. It's easy sometimes to constantly focus on those insurance activities, but it's also equally important to kind of help maybe in those consulting aspects where we can provide some additional value to help the organization achieve its objectives and continue to move forward. So if we move on to the next slide, again, this just kind of gives an idea of the structure of internal audit and a control environment having 3 lines of defense. Your first roles are the products and services that you provide to the students. The second are the second line where it's the management implementing the control practices and the observation. And then you have that third line, which is where internal audit comes in, providing that independent assurance, being able to look at the processes, ensure that risks are being mitigated as best they can, not to ensure zero errors happen, because that would probably be a waste of resources, but to ensure high level assurance is being provided with the controls that have been designed by the organization. Let's move. This kind of gives you a little idea of how internal audit fits into the overall governance structure. We do have a direct line to this committee as well as senior management and Dr. Quarles. And we bring to this group several, robust experience. Megan Crane is our student aid and university expert, and we have access to her on a regular basis if we're ever faced with anything that Curtis and I may not have direct experience with. We have, people that we can go to. We have our forensics team here. We have our IT team, our cybersecurity team, all kinds of resources that we're able to go to and feel really strong to help us, help you is what our ultimate goal is. And by the way, I don't think I mentioned, but we have Curtis on, who does a lot of the work with KCTCS, is on this call as well. And I thank him for everything he does. Again, this kind of goes into some other resources we have here at the firm that help us, help you all. Looking at the annual audit cycle, which we started in March this past year, is we have an audit universe that we kind of use as a starting point that we've built over the last 5 years that we've been working with KCTCS, and begin setting up interviews not only with the college presidents, but key leaders in the system, Dr. Quarles, the audit committee, Todd, all of the key players in the organization, to begin talking about what are your pain points? Where can we assist you? How can we help you? And use that information as well as resources from, the National Association of Colleges and Universities and other materials that we have access to help us put together a plan that helps the organization move forward and get to the try to get to the strategic objectives that they're wanting to meet. So we develop that plan in collaboration with, experts we have here at the firm, with speaking with management and areas that we need to work on. So we can perform work, as we call it, assurance. So that would be more compliance related? Are we doing what the policies and procedures say that we should do? Are we following any compliance regulations that may be required? You know, it's a very regulated organization, so looking at all of those. But in addition, we can perform special projects and consulting engagements. And you'll see as we go down, we have a few consulting engagements built into our plan. You know, we conduct those audits, distribute, and then do this annual report each year. And I meet with Todd pretty regularly. I don't know if it's every other month, every month. Try to meet with Dr. Quarles a couple times a year, meet with Chair Russell Cox, you know, several times a year as well, just to keep that communication, and then obviously report to you all on a quarterly basis. So we do all of this, you know, throughout the year. The key for us is transparency, and I do feel like we have a very good relationship where there's times that, you know, Todd reaches out and says, hey, we need some help in this, and, you know, bounce ideas off. So I think that is says a lot for the organization and our relationship. So again, as we develop the risk population, moving to the next slide, we prioritize them and try to identify where should we be spending our time. And again, work on putting together a draft plan and bouncing it and making sure that management aligns with this. So this year we've put together a proposed plan. As you know, we've just finalized this. We're going to begin, you know, in our conversations with staff, we found out that bad debt is kind of a higher risk area where it used to be the State Department of Revenue used to help with some collections, and now they've notified KCTCS, no, we're not going to be able to do that anymore due to our limited staffing, et cetera. And so the colleges have a little angst around the procedures that are going to be placed on them. So we thought it would be a good idea to help do a review on what are the different schools doing, what are some practices that can be systematized, you know, across the system to help everybody, and how can they move forward with the new roles that's been placed on them now that the Department of Revenue is not involved. We have looking at 5 business office, or performing 5 business office, which would be our typical assurance engagements, looking at activities at schools where maybe they've had some turnover, maybe there've been, you know, some changes, or areas that we just want to look at because we haven't been to that school in a while. So we are going to be looking at 5 of those. Another challenge that we heard through our interviews is the increased in I don't know if you consider it cybersecurity, but false applications that come to school that end up resulting in disbursements for financial aid that, you know, aren't, you know, maybe not needed to be awarded. KCTCS has put in a lot of, is getting in front of that and doing a lot of things to catch it. But once again, we're going to try to look across the system and look at all the practices the different schools are putting in place to combat that, and see if there's some synergies that can be gained in looking at each of those.
I have a question there. So the proliferation of AI is going to make this worse.
Yep.
And are we as an industry and higher ed, I guess, and us in KCTC, are we doing anything with our own AI that can maybe lay on top of that and refute the fraudulent AI? Is that something that you see down the road? Or
I'll take a stab at this. So first off, yes and no. There's a big national push on this. In fact, Department of Education has identified this as a top level issue. I've put aside and approved some funds to be used by our technology solutions folks to try to develop a better strategy on this. But in the meantime, there's a spike in these fraudulent apps. The best way to prevent it is to meet someone face to face, to make sure they're real. or identifying more secure ways of knowing if their driver's license is real when they're submitting online, et cetera. So I do believe that there's been some improvements, but the problem, as you correctly assessed, is that they're becoming more sophisticated as well. That cover,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I would just add, we have a working group that's working on, you know, how do we prevent this? Is there software that's available? Are there processes? They're looking at, you know, kind of nationwide, what are other systems doing? One of the things we're going to ask Dean Dorton to help us with is on the accounting side, if somebody did receive, if we did have a student who there was fraudulent activity on his account, oftentimes we're waiving that tuition, but that has implications for the college's financial statements by creating those waivers. And so we've asked for some help and some guidance on what other entities might be doing around the accounting side of that and how we can manage that. But I know the California state system has just been inundated with this, and it's becoming an issue, and everybody's trying to catch up on this. So our IT technology solutions area is doing a good job at trying to stop what they can and trying to find some ways to prevent it. But it's just going to be an ongoing process because it changes so quickly.
Thanks. Not easy.
Regent Stephen had his hands up for a moment.
Yes, sir. All of these audit of the calendars are very important. However, I am concerned about the capital projects and facilities, and especially I know Rachel and I have talked about before, safety and security at our campuses. With all of this going on, it just frightens me unbelievable of this. So I know Dr. Qualls, you and I have talked several times about facilities and safety. So that's just one of my concerns with the system. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up, we are asking for $30 million in security-related upgrades this next session across the system.
Yes, to move back to our plan, we do have, and I think you probably saw this, the capital projects, because that came up since we've just recently changed the practices at KCTCS to try to make it more efficient. We thought at the end of Q4 that we should come in and look at that and ensure additional gaps haven't been identified due to trying to simplify the process. We want to make sure that the controls are still robust, as well as there was a safety and security audit that we had performed, and we're doing a follow-up. So typically in our follow-ups on a typical basis, we look to management and ask that for them to give us a status on their action plans. In this particular case, because of the criticalness of the area, we're going to go back and do a true, a validation of all of that follow-up to ensure that the things that they said were completed were actually completed. And then we've added another area that we, again, because of some changes, with turnover and things, there were some questions throughout our risk assessments process regarding PeopleSoft, effective use of PeopleSoft. So we thought it would be a good idea to help identify areas that maybe people aren't understanding with regards to PeopleSoft, or how can we, how can the system better communicate either through training or through a list of, a better communication to the champion of PeopleSoft to get the reports, because it sounds like, in talking to some of the presidents, they're having to run 4 and 5 different reports to get the information they want. So we're going to try to help work through that and see if maybe those reports already exist, and we can, point the presidents or whoever from the different campuses to the report, or work with the data champion to come up with reports that help give the college presidents the information they need. And then also provide some support to Mallory in the ERM system process areas, things that we can do to help her, since she's been spending a lot of time on policy updates. Maybe there's some things that we can do to help her in the area of ERM as well and provide support for her. And then again, just continuing to follow up on those policies and procedures, not only to make sure that they're working as effectively or have been, crafted as effectively as they should. And then our IT has put together their calendar of areas that they're going to be focusing on as well. And I believe they worked with the head of IT on that. And then again, we always, want to share areas of risk that weren't included on our plan. And it could be because, there's only so many resources that are available, but also maybe due to other things having a higher priority, but just wanted to share some of the information that came up through our conversations with staff, areas of potential concern or things that we'll be looking at to include into our plans in subsequent years. And then finally, as one of the things that we do as a internal audit function is we follow the Institute of Internal Auditors, which is a global organization for the professional practices of internal audit. And they have some required communication that they want us to share with you with regards to the work that we perform. And one of it's in our area of quality assurance improvement program, very similar to an external audit that requires peer reviews. We have a similar requirement within the IIA, and one of them is that we have a quality assurance improvement program that we execute every year where we're looking at our practices and benchmarking them up to the IIA standards. So we do that on a regular basis, and in probably about 2 years, we'll be undergoing our peer review to ensure that we have, a third party come in and look at it and say, yes, you are following the standards as you're supposed to. We continually invest in our staff through professional development in the area of, we're active in ACUA and NACUA, and trying to do all the things related to university. So we're trying to stay up to date, but as well as just our internal audit practices as well. We reviewed the annual charter. You may recall that I think it was recently updated in January. And so there were no changes that were needed this particular year since we just recently went through an update. And then we're really excited. We're implementing a new platform, and I've been talking to Todd about this, that will provide hopefully some more access for Todd into the process of, how we're doing on our projects. We're going to be able to make requests through our projects, do our survey through this platforms, and then also monitor the findings and be able to send out automatic emails when, our action plans coming to due so that they can go out and be sent to the people, be updated and come back and have some dashboards that will give some more visibility into the work that we're doing. And we're probably about halfway through implementing that, but we're really excited to continue to move forward and provide even more information for you all as we move forward. And at that, I will move to any questions that anybody has.
Again, an important aspect of what we do as a committee is to make sure that this is the roadmap that we think is an important one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll open it up. But one of the things, and President Quarles, this is in your purview and probably doesn't belong in the audit plan, and I'll bring it up, as we talk about governance in that audit plan. One of the things I think we've got to look at is, how do we take on this issue of AI in IT and cybersecurity in a different way going forward? Because I really do feel like that if when we talk about vulnerabilities, I think that's one of the greatest vulnerabilities that any institution like yours has right now. I mean, we hear daily about the physical safety, and we're doing everything humanly possible, and I believe that the request for more funds would be great. But I think a board needs to understand the vulnerability that exists that can have an impact on all aspects of our audit and our being credible with what we're doing to protect student information and privacy information, and not have inappropriate data going out to the wrong places. So I don't know where that fits, but I would just put it out there as a concern.
Completely agree. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? And I'm really bad about seeing if there's any hands up. Okay. So we need to take action on this and make a recommendation, approve a recommendation for the board for the 25-26 proposed audit plan. And can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Thank you, James Lee. In a second.
Second.
Thank you. And
Right.
parliamentarian to conduct the roll call.
Chair Cox,
Yes.
Regent Hamilton,
Yes.
Regent Gibbons,
Yes.
Regent Martin, Regent McGraw,
Yes.
Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Stevens,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much for everyone's attention. Thank you, folks who presented this today. And of course, Todd, thank you for your leadership. Dean Dorton, we appreciate the work being done here. Before we get to the issue of any new business, I'd like to take just a second and ask the parliamentarian, if you would, with all the voting members of the Regents, will you do just a quick roll call? And I ask this every time, are there any issues that are on your mind, any questions that you have? I think it's important to do a transparent go through here and actually hear the voice of that you're comfortable with the direction that KCTC is going, and that you're comfortable with where the proposed audit and direction of our audit committee is going, because it's a really important committee. It's a really important body of work. I think it's going to be even more important as this year and next year goes by. So this is your time. If you don't have anything, that's fine. But if you do, I want to make sure that we have the opportunity.
Chair Cox.
I am talked out, but I'm good. Thank you.
Regent Hamilton.
The only thing that I can continually be concerned about, and we just talked about it, is safety. With some of the recent incidents that's happened in school environments with young kids. But I know it's a money play. It's a constant issue about cost. But hopefully we can continue to make improvements there. That's all I got.
Regent Gibbons.
Yes, I will. I'll just reiterate the concern with safety on our campuses. That is a concern of the students I speak with. That's a concern for me personally. I know $30 million to most people may seem like a big ask, but you spread that across 16 campuses. I think if we can make our campuses secure for $30 million, that's a bargain. And that's my input. Thank you.
Regent Martin. Regent McGraw.
No, I appreciate the diligence and focus, and I appreciated the discussion about the procurement cards, right? That's a personal hot button issue of me, so I appreciate the focus. Thanks.
Regent Powers.
Same for me. I mean, the security is definitely something that we need to make sure our faculty and staff and students are all safe on campus. And I agree with Regent Gibbons that it is still of a deal. So thank you so much for providing all of this information to us today.
Regent Stevens.
No, ma'am. I'd like to thank the chairman for doing a good job again, Mr. Cox.
Regents
Hey,
Audit.
I learned from the best.
Regents Audit.
I think you guys have covered everything quite well, so I'm not going to belabor any of the points. So you're good.
President Quarles.
Thank you for giving me insight and where to focus. Just a quick update. It's week number 2. Students are back on campus. Enrollment is up 6.4%. That's great. That's on top of our 8% increase from last year. So congrats to all those out there recruiting our students. We have 3 brand new presidents. We put them through the first ever that we know of, new president's orientation. So we got great onboarding for them. They're doing a fantastic job. We're focused on partnerships. Next week, we'll be signing a statewide transfer policy with Eastern Kentucky University. It's already in effect, so I'm not sharing any state secrets right now. And also, we're doing a lot of work with Kentucky state government. What can KCTCS do to enhance state government and our employees as well? I'll just close out here by saying we're rolling out our mental health strategy. We know that it's not enough, but it's our start. And we just got survey data back. I'll send out with our weekly emails if you want to know more about that. Other than that, we're in budget mode with CPE, prepping for session, and also the new workforce Pell, which is the new opportunity for community colleges across the country, a new funding source that was passed by Congress. Looking forward to our next board meeting at Jefferson Community Technical College. There's going to be a lot of construction. We're going to show it off today, show what's going on down the Lou Med area. And also we'll have our students cooking for us. Some culinary arts students will be cooking for us as well. And also we think it's going to be a well-attended community breakfast that Friday morning. The mayor of Louisville has confirmed to be there. And so we hope to have a great community meeting and avoid the big concerts downtown that are ongoing in Louisville as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate you and all your staff. Great work. We need to also acknowledge and see if our board chair, who is really in charge of all of this, Keith, anything that you need to add before we move on?
No, I think we're in good shape. Appreciate it. Well done.
Very good. Is there any new business that the committee needs to address before we move on? If not, let's move on. So that will conclude the meeting. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you. Second. Parliamentarian, are we good with that?
Any objections to the motion to adjourn? All right, the motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned at 2:13 p.m.
See you next month. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.